this is the Cahuzac Harlequin. Do you know the piece at all?
Not off the top of my head. Maybe maybe once you start hearing it.
Yeah, unaccompanied piece. An Harlequin is it's a character from the Commedia dell'arte, which was this like bunch of street performers in Italy, like 16th to 18th century, like a precursor to modern theater, professional theater, and it was unique because there were women involved in it that weren't usually allowed to perform in other venues. And it's like the, if you've ever seen Punch and Judy shows, that's sort of, a lot of those characters come from the Commedia. And so this is Harlequin, who's a kind of like a lighthearted, nimble servant, pleases his master, but always pursues his own ends. He's very resourceful. So one of the interesting things about the Commedia dell'arte is that this is one of the characters who predominantly used mime in his portrayals. So it's kind of fitting that it would be a musical mime of his character. Okay, here you go.
Hooray!
Harlequin.
Single clip.
You come through okay?
Oh yeah. It sounds. I don't know how you want to take this, but that sounds like something that you would pick to play, if that makes sense. It's
well, it really appeals to me.
Yeah, it's all our years in the past talking repertoire. It's there's quirky, fun, technical, No, but that was good. I guess for people just tuning in who have no idea what's going on right now, they just heard some great clarinet playing. Would you mind introducing yourself? And
Sure.
yeah.
Okay, I'm Eric Ginsberg, professor of clarinet at Western Illinois University. I'm actually in my studio, and haven't been here in quite a bit of time since we really don't do anything in the summer here, and it's a bit of an ordeal to come in. You have to get your temperature checked and all that.
Right. Yeah. So as kind of a timestamp here, we're recording this in the midst of all the COVID business. So,
right.
When I first conceived of doing this, I was kind of hoping to do these in person.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice to catch up in person in general, but recording quality and things. But on the bright side,
I would be happy to do a follow-up session with you sometime. As long as we're careful, I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, definitely want to do more with the network we've built over the years, and
right.
I figure if we're constrained by our circumstances right now, we just do the best we can with what we have and still get some value out.
Right.
So I'm gonna jump way back here. How did you get started in clarinet in the first place?
I mean, it's somewhat serendipitous in that I come from a musical family. I think I mentioned in my notes to you that my brother is a professional violinist. He's retired now, but he was in the New York Philharmonic for 44 years, something like that, principal second violin. And I grew up with him, and my father was an amateur violinist. He wasn't a professional. He did other things, but so I had a lot of music in the house. But as successful as my brother's relationship as a student of my father's was, at least for starting, it didn't quite work out with me. And I tried some other instruments, and then my mother had a good close friend whose daughter had played and had the clarinet sitting around. So I tried it, and I liked it immediately, but it was not a very good clarinet at all. But I had a teacher within a month, because in my family they understood the necessity of having teachers, and he lived by walking about a half hour from where I lived. I walked to all my lessons, and I usually showed up about a half hour early, and his wife would feed me, and then she'd give me a lesson.
A good bonus.
It was a good bonus. Yeah, it was a nice relationship. And then, so that's how I started. I grew up in New Rochelle, a suburb of New York City.
What, you said you took the clarinet immediately. What was it about the clarinet that kind of endeared you to it?
Well, gosh, it's a long time ago, but right. What I remember is that I could do it. It kind of just seemed to work, and I liked the tone. And it was nice in a family of string players to have be somebody different.
Yeah, little contrarian. It doesn't hurt anyone that bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's some element of that kind of unspoken attraction that keeps us all doing it if we're doing it. But I feel like it's rare I've met anyone who just picks it up as like a technical career and doesn't have some kind of unspoken love for it.
Right, definitely. But it is interesting. This is a little bit of a side note, I guess. But nowadays, I really don't listen to a lot of clarinetists. I listen to some, but I've been listening to a lot of Bach on violin and cello, and a lot of opera, a lot of singers.
Any particular vein of opera that you've been
Uh,
into
no,
the,
it just so happened like a couple of weeks ago, my family took a little trip. We went to see my son who lives, he lives in Champaign. And so we met at State Park and we spent the afternoon at the park trying to keep away from people as much as we could. And so on the way home, my daughter played a recording of Don Giovanni. And one of my favorite Mozart operas. And I played it several times. So I listened to a lot of that sort of stuff. I watch a lot of YouTube. I've gotten into that, and I have these YouTube channels I subscribe to. One is a violinist named Augustin Hadelich. He's a German violinist, and he's got all kinds of videos of himself. And another one I'd like to listen to is a woman has a podcast in which she goes to a violin dealer and tries all these really expensive, fine, rare violins.
I've seen channels like that, violins, guitars, like real high dollar instruments.
Yeah, he's got 5 minutes to play the instrument at the dealer, but then she has a little talk about the history of the violin, the history of the violin maker. And that one particularly, because you hear so many different violins and have so many different personalities and different colors, that I start to relate it to the kind of colors I want to get on the clarinet and the clarinet sound, and how I choose my reeds, and whether I'm choosing them for their flexibility or for their colorfulness, or maybe just for their stability, which may not have as much color. So it's given me a lot to think about.
Oh yeah, no, that's it's interesting. I've done a lot of similar YouTubing over the lockdown months.
Right.
And let's say for violins in particular, the difference could be hundreds of thousands of dollars, but the character, it's fascinating, the character that can come out. Also, right. The person handling the instrument. I saw one with I believe it's a 2-set violin, a couple of Asian guys.
I love those guys. Yeah, they're Asian guys and they live in Australia.
Oh, Australia.
So that's where they play. I'm not sure if they're still playing in orchestras there, but I'm not sure if they were born in Australia, but this comes from Australia.
Yeah, they've put out some great content. There was the one in particular. They had I'll put it in the show notes. I can't remember right now, but they had a famous soloist show up with his multi-million-dollar violin, and they all kind of passed it around and played it. Of course, the soloist brought out just magic. It sounded like magic, but the other guys, they're great. They're great players, but you could kind of tell the gap in between. So yeah, the equipment and then the player. But that's, plus I enjoy seeing kind of music comedians. It reminds me of kind of maybe the modern version of the old Victor Borge stuff.
Right.
Humor and quality music to today's audience.
Yeah, I think those guys are fantastic.
So now, how long have you been at Western now?
It's been 24 years. 1996 I arrived. So
did you what was your career like before that? Were you at other universities, or I know you've been playing as well?
I started out when I was out of school, and I got a job in the Oklahoma Symphony. And that's where I met my wife. And I played there for 13 years, 12 or 13 years. And then they had a strike for a whole year having to do with strike issues. It coincided with a downturn in the oil industry, which was the main support of that organ. So during the strike, we managed to find one-year positions in the Omaha Symphony, and that was a nice experience to play in a different orchestra. And then the orchestra folded, and I had managed to get a position in a woodwind quintet in Pittsburgh called the Conspirato Woodwind Quintet. And I did that for 2 years. It was a full-time quintet. We rehearsed every day for like 3 hours, which is not a huge amount of time for chamber music groups, but it was a lot for quintet, I think.
Mm.
And then I got a position, temporary, what they called a term position, that lasted 4 years at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln.
Okay.
So, and then from there, I came here.
All right. What are, and this is for anyone new. Well, I guess everyone's new because I'm just starting this. But I did my master's work with this guy and harassed you periodically over the years in different contexts in different ways. So I'm appreciative of the relationship we have where we can come do this and kind of share your value with whatever audience I can drum up. I know I've been hanging on to my own studio. It's had its fluctuations over the years, and certainly now it's an unusual time to try to teach. This is basically taking the place of my in-person studio for the time being.
Right.
But assuming normal times, what can you tell us about your best and worst days at work?
Okay, days at work. Well, I teach in the studio here. I've had over the years as many as 17 students, 18 students, and it's much lower now. It's been much harder. Recruiting. I think the state budget crisis that happened a few years back didn't help at all. So I started teaching as well as the studio. I taught a couple of years of music appreciation, and now I'm doing first year oral skills. And I enjoy it a lot. It's just a different kind of teaching. But it was when I was at Juilliard, the solfege that they taught, I thought was one of the most valuable things that I took there. Really helped my reading, rhythm. It was really good training.
Was it the fixed or movable?
It was fixed. We do movable here, but I try to bring at least some of the rigor that I had to the class. I mean, it's a work in progress. I'm not that experienced teaching it, but I enjoy it a lot. So I'm in the process of planning for this semester, and at least so far, the classes will be face-to-face, in person.
All right.
But I'm also going to be teaching as much as I can outside with my studio. I have, remember my studio and has a big tree outside the window. And I thought it would be a perfect place to have clarinet choir and do some lessons. Plenty of ventilation out there.
Yeah.
As long as there aren't too many other people doing the same thing, I think I should be okay.
Right. Maybe the future plan for universities can be just to have a large wooded plot with some covered restrooms here and there. Just you know. But what's so they have you kind of mixing it up over there now. What's a really good day at work for you?
And the other thing is I have the Camerata Quintet. It's our wooden quintet. And so we have in the past rehearsed 6 hours a week, even though it's way beyond what we're contractually required to. But we put the 6 hours in because that's what it takes to have. So we can have any kind of respect for what we do. Quintet music is hard, especially the good stuff. And so that's always been one of the most enjoyable parts of the job. We had a great group. It's changed a lot because people have retired now. So the personalities are a little different, and we haven't still filled a couple of positions for this year.
Oh,
we're still waiting to hear what's going to happen about that. But and we've traveled around to various schools and played concerts here and there, and that's going to be a lot different this year. We won't probably be able to do that, but we'll be able to do something like this.
Right. Some kind of online, YouTube. We've run into this with I play with West Suburban Symphony here in the area, and they had to close their season out. And everyone's just kind of sitting around trying to figure out how to move forward.
Right.
But I'm pretty sure, if we're flexible enough, people are going to find their way here to the internet, and at best, we're going to see a lot of real creative solutions to this distance.
As it is, we stream all our concerts. We have been streaming for a couple of years now, all the concerts in the recital hall. And I'm playing a recital September 9th, planning to anyway, and that'll be streamed.
All right. What's on the program for that one?
There's a Schubert sonatina. There are 3 sonatinas written for violin, and I'm playing the first. It's in D major. It lies really well on A clarinet in F major. So so that's what I'm doing, that one. I've done that years and years ago, but I really like it. And then I'm doing a sonata by Settaccioli, sort of early 20th century, mid 20th century Italian composer. And I just happened to find it when I was browsing through YouTube, and saw a performance. This is really interesting. I managed to find the music, and I mean, I'll see. I haven't started rehearsing yet, so we'll see what it's like.
Well, I'm sure it'll be great.
Yeah, there's one more piece that I'm working on. I've never played before. It's a Thai Fair. She's one of the Lecis, the only woman in Lecis, unaccompanied sonata. So I've been working on that too.
Yeah, well, that'll be fun. That's tentatively September 9th, you said?
Yep.
All right. I'll put some kind of link there. When you guys stream these concerts, are they saved for later viewing? Like there's live, and then can you go back later and watch through it? Is it up somewhere?
Yeah, I think it's on the WIU I think it's their Facebook page. I'm not really certain. I've actually never watched anything. I always go to the concerts, right. But I think it's on the Facebook page.
Okay, if it's wherever it is, I'll dig it up and put it in the notes, so whether people can.
See if I can find it and send it to you. I'll see what I can dig up myself.
All right. Yeah, I mean, one way or another, we'll get eyes on and get some attention that direction.
I also playing on this electroacoustic concert, which is in September 23rd. I'm playing 2 pieces for clarinet and electronics. That's a totally different kind of playing, but I like that stuff. So
yeah, no, it's the kind of bleeding edge, the direction the clarinet can go.
Yeah.
It's probably not as fun, but what's a bad day at work for you there? I know you're gifted with a lot of things you like to do, a lot of great experiences, but everyone has a bad day.
I suppose occasionally personalities clash. It's pretty rare.
Yeah. It's a human thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And at the moment, the uncertainty of things is a little distressing. It's not just the pandemic, but it's the reaction to it. So like I said, we haven't filled 2 wooden positions. We had, one of them, we had a search. We had somebody ready to go, and it's just been delayed and delayed and delayed. And I understand that administrations are scrambling all over the country to figure out how to adapt. So that's been a little frustrating, but I wouldn't say it's a bad day. My bad days are more personal. If I really hate the way I'm playing, if I really don't like my reads, if I get into one of these states of mind where I don't like anything I'm doing, that's a bad day. But I can usually find my way out of it.
There you go. I think we have more control over our state of mind than maybe we want to admit some days, but that's
Right. We haven't talked about Cal Opperman yet, but he was such a methodical teacher. He had worked so many things out. He understood how to play, and he himself had been an amazing player. So that when I would find myself, like I painted myself into a corner, I would just go back to my very beginning exercises with him. Simple things, and it's like a reset, rebooting my clarinet playing.
That's important. That's one of the parallels I draw a lot now with my martial arts school, and hopefully my content for that side of my life online. But finding your way back from these kind of rabbit holes and recentering yourself, building your foundation when you get stuck somewhere out in the weeds.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is a good segue into your teachers and your other history. I know my first connection with you was at one of the Opperman clarinet summits years ago. I had my first memory of you was seeing you get chewed out for being a fraction of a second late on E flat for something.
Right.
But that was also that whole experience was kind of a revelation to me of what clarinet could be, the standards that professionals hold. Yeah, I think I'd been in kind of my comfortable small Christian school bubble of comfortable playing, and then that first kind of shocking exposure to real high level professional standards. So and then I found my way to you for master's work.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
So, but
yeah.
So I mean, so Cal has been kind of a big touchstone for our relationship over the years. But I know you've worked with other notable great clarinetists. Would you mind sharing some of that as well?
Yeah. So I mentioned my first teacher, who was somebody in the neighborhood. But I still think, although I haven't heard him, I mean, he's no longer living, but I thought he was a wonderful player, and he played in one of the community orchestras that my father played in, so I could hear him play a lot. But he, at a certain point, said, I think you need to go to somebody else, and he sent me to this fellow, Ben Armato. Ben Armato is noteworthy because he wrote an excerpt book of opera excerpts, because he played in the Metropolitan Opera. He was the second clarinet. And he also made this gizmo called the Perfector Reed. And there's, I think, something else
I vaguely remember that. I don't remember much. But
the Perfector Reed is just a dial indicator. So it allows you to measure the thickness of your reeds on either side at various places. And I used it for a while, and I used to keep charts of my reeds, and then I stopped using it. And I studied with him all the way through high school, and then I went off, and I didn't go to music school right away. I went to Stony Brook University because I was going to be a scientist of some sort. And
figure it out later.
Yeah. I didn't take any lessons for a whole year, but I played in the band. And then I started taking lessons the second year from David Glazer, who was the member of the New York Woodwind Quintet at the time. Very nice man, and a very good musician. But I decided during my second year at school that I wanted to be a musician, be a clarinetist, and so I transferred to Juilliard, and there I studied with Stanley Drucker, who I mean, everybody knows Stanley Drucker, just a fantastic technician, and not just a technician, a wonderful musician, wonderful player. It was kind of, I wouldn't say brutal, but he say, bring in this concerto next week. So I'd, work all week and bring it in. And he says, okay, bring in another concerto. And it was kind of sometimes hands off. Occasionally, if I brought in excerpts, then he'd sit me down and he'd really work them over. But he would never work on excerpts unless I had studied the score and I knew all the parts, and I don't know, I hadn't done that very often, and so he would just not be concerned. There was nothing bad about my lessons with him. I just felt I needed something else, and I had some friends who were studying with Cal Opperman, and I'd also discovered the playing of Harold Wright. So this is a bit of an aside, but when I got to Juilliard, I didn't really know much. I knew a lot of violin repertoire because of my family, and I knew a lot of famous violinists, but I didn't know any clarinetists except for Reginald Kell. I had a lot of Reginald Kell records, and a Viennese clarinetist named Leopold Vlach, W-L-A-C-H. But I didn't know who the current players were. I didn't know what the scene was. And so within a month of starting there, I discovered Robert Marcellus, Louis Cahuzac, whose piece I just played, and Harold Wright. And I said, oh my gosh, those guys are just amazing. And then I learned that Harold Wright and Louis Cahuzac were double lip clarinetists. And so I said, I want to do that. I was 20, 21 years old, whatever. I want to do that. And I started doing it. And I didn't know what I was doing. And so I visited Cal, and he said, well, I don't know. We'll see what we can do with you. And so, and he taught me how to play double lip. So I have occasionally taken lessons, coaching excerpts with other people over the years. I did when I was in Oklahoma, but I always came back to take lessons with Cal until he died, which was in 98, 99, something like that, I forget.
Oh, 2010, I believe. It was a while.
2010, right. Yeah. You're right. That's right.
It's time flies, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's.
So those are my teachers. That's my, and with Cal, it was the whole deal. You study with him, you played on his mouthpieces, you played on his barrels. I bought clarinets from him, and I loved them. But after he died, I started experimenting with trying different mouthpieces, different things. And I think I eventually came to a mouthpiece that seems to do what his mouthpieces did, but maybe a little more practical for me, a little easier to play. So that's what I'm playing on a Ramone Wadkowski. He's a mouthpiece maker who I think is based now in Detroit. He was based in London for a while, and then would travel all over the world. All of that is stopped because of the conditions we're in. Right. But he does mail order work, and so those are but even when the pandemic started and our shutdown occurred, I thought I would try some other mouthpieces. I tried some Van Doren DD5s. And have you tried them?
Yeah, one of the local band directors referred me to those. It's one that he promoted to a lot of his studio. I understand why people might like it. It's just not for me. Having played on it, I feel like it makes sense. It's just not for me.
Right. I was really giving it a shot, and I practiced on it exclusively for maybe 2 months. I said, okay, this is it. I'm going to really make it work. I tried various reads on it. And then when I actually tried to start playing some music on it, I found I had no endurance. It was just too open for me. Cal's mouthpieces and Ramone's, that at least the ones that I have purchased, are on the closer side. So so it's kind of nice to try something different, especially something that's really different. Yeah. And then when you're back, you appreciate what you have.
That was something I talked to Dr. Baird about in my interview with him. I was really planning, let's say, I was not expecting a worldwide pandemic, and I was planning to jump into the next Clarinet Fest and get my hands on equipment again, because I'd just been so kind of out of the loop. I had what worked for me for my context, and kind of the same standard stuff seemed to work well enough for any students I had. I just didn't feel, for a while, I didn't feel the need to jump on every new thing that came out. But now, looking at the industry, I feel like I'm too detached, and I need to at least acquaint myself with what's out there now.
Yeah, I think that's helpful for what you can recommend to students. I also have an M13, which I kind of like. But for now, I'm just going to stay with what I have.
Yeah, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Right.
So,
and I'd like to, if it's possible, go see Ramone again and maybe have him check on the mouthpieces. I mean, they do change.
Right. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's what's the word? It's not a renewable resource. It's going to wear out at some point.
Right. What are you using at the moment?
I'm still on my my Sayer mouthpiece.
Great.
Last time, I think when he made it for me, he told me he's just not going to make anymore.
That's great. Yeah.
So, plus, I think at the time he was still using the Zinner blanks, and I'm told that they're no longer around. So
they're no longer. They stopped producing them. So
that's yet another reason I guess I need to get back into the industry, because at some point I'm going to have to buy more stuff and make it work.
Right. So
I don't know. Barring any more surprises, I guess I'll just wait for the next Clarinet Fest, or I don't know. I've tried going to Midwest in the past. It's just doesn't feel like my scene either. Maybe I just don't like driving to the city.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of cool stuff, but a lot of it's school band focused. School, like,
sure,
that crowd. But something I'm sure I'll get out there and reacquaint. Yeah. Now, what are some big, like, major core lessons you think you got from these?
I lost you a little bit on that last sentence.
Oh, there we go. Red line. What are some?
Maybe you should mute me when you're talking. That way, if I make some noise here, it won't interrupt.
All right. Well, we'll see
how to do that.
I'll figure it out. What are some major core lessons you learned from this body of teachers you've had? Like some real like large foundational truths maybe you could share.
Okay. Well, I should mention that growing up, sharing a bedroom with my brother, who's practicing, I heard every day. He's 6 years older than I am. So I heard him when he was in high school practicing, and then when he lived at home for a couple of years in college, when he went to Juilliard as well. So I picked up from him, and he also made a point of teaching me certain ways of practicing. So I'd say number one, what I've learned from everybody is you have to put the time in on the instrument. And, you know, practicing is the most important thing, and practicing a lot. And it can mean a lot of sacrifice, because there are a lot of other things that are fun to do in life. So at least you have to keep a count in your head of, am I spending more time, you know, playing games or watching TV than I am on the clarinet? Or am I playing with my friends more than I'm playing on the clarinet? I mean, you have to, your clarinet needs its time. It's impossible to learn how to play without practicing. So that's like maybe, you know, the most basic thing, and it's the thing that keeps me practicing as well. Just, I know that if I don't do it, you lose it so incredibly quickly. My brother, and then many teachers as well, but he was the first, taught me about practicing using different rhythms and different articulations. There's a, I like to play etudes by violin. In fact, all the Rose etudes are taken from other composers. In the case of the 32, they're Fairling etudes, but there's a group of 26 etudes that are from Kreutzer and Mazas and some other of these famous violin pedagogues. And a lot of the Perrier that I studied with Cal are from those sources, as well as Paganini and Bach. So in one of the Kreutzer etudes, it's got 25 different ways of practicing this one etude. And it's 25 different articulations, different rhythms. And it's an incredibly complete, comprehensive approach to how to practice. So, so that's something I've always done, and it was something that Cal emphasized a tremendous amount. One thing that he also emphasized was you learn to play an etude in one key, well, then start transposing it. So, you know, maybe I'll start learning to transpose Arlequin, but
there you go.
You know, I mean, but I do that a little bit all the time. I don't go through practically every key, but I'll go up a half step, I'll go down a half step, I'll go up a step. It makes it possible to play in any key. So then key signatures aren't an issue anymore. So I'd say, you know, practicing and how you practice, what you bring to the practice session in terms of the work you're doing on the scales, the rhythms, the articulations, it's really, really important as far as like a core belief about how to play the clarinet. The other thing is that a concept that I find meaningful is to always think of resistance versus response. You know, when you're picking out a reed out of your pile of reed on your table, you want something that speaks. You know, you want to get the sound out of the mouthpiece, but you want it to hold. You want to be able to sustain and play a phrase, and that's embouchure and all of that stuff. But it's equipment too. So I really believe that you have to have equipment that doesn't make it harder to play. I know some mouthpiece makers talk a lot about having more of the center built into the equipment. That's one thing that Al worked on, and I think that seems to be what my present mouthpiece seems to help me do. So I think it shouldn't be hard to play. I mean, it's hard enough as it is, but you shouldn't be struggling to get the sound out of the instrument.
Right. It sounds like something I've yelled at some of my students before, you know, so to speak, like, quit making things harder. Like,
Right.
I found, you know, whether it's music or martial arts or whatever I happen to be teaching, you know, writing the alphabet, students have a knack for making things harder on themselves than they really have to be. You know, compounding.
It almost seems like when we learn something, when we learn to do some skill. Like I do a lot of swimming, and I've been swimming every day since this whole thing started, because I have the time to do it. And I swum in high school, so I'm a half decent swimmer. But I'm always aware of how I can swim with less effort.
Mm.
Not that I want to go slowly, but that I can have a more efficient stroke.
Right.
And it seems that anything we learn to do, we then have to start taking the tension out. We have to start to figure out a more elegant way of doing whatever we're doing. You know, if you look at people who do construction work, how they wield a hammer, they get that nail into the piece of wood. They don't even use hammers anymore. But you know, if the old timers, you know, one or sometimes two strokes of the hammer and the nails in the wood. And so it's really interesting to observe people who are good at what they do, whether it's sweeping floors or playing the violin or whatever, is that the really excellent ones have developed an ease about what they're doing. And maybe Roger Federer, watching him serve a tennis ball, or a musician or singer.
That's kind of the root meaning of the term kung fu in you know, the original Chinese. It's the idea of, you know, the product or the end result of you know, mastered time and energy. Kind of like, it's that idea of mastery, like kind of effortless mastery.
Effortless mastery, yeah.
So, but that's
Like
good.
that.
It's nice to hear somebody kind of corroborate that that's a universal idea.
I think it is, yeah.
Oh, let's see.
Yeah.
And,
it's why, you know, even, I mean, I watched tennis when tennis used to be watchable, when there were matches to watch. And, you know, all the players have coaches. You don't just go out into the world and start playing matches without any help.
yeah.
You know, so, and I haven't had a lesson actually with anybody in a long time, but I think it would be really nice to have some lessons.
Is it? That's I hope people take that lesson to heart. You've had an extensive career, one that I respect and hopefully can emulate to some extent, but to remain teachable regardless of what you've already achieved. I hope people take that to heart as they listen to this.
Yeah, you know, one thing Cal emphasized was how important the practice session was, and his view. Whenever I would complain about some gig I had done where the players weren't so great or the conductor wasn't so great, you know, big news. He'd say, "Don't worry about that stuff." He said, "Just practice. Your practicing is the most important thing you do, and if you have a good practice session, you can handle anything. Nothing is going to bother you. But if you're not happy with your practicing, you're going to complain about everything else." And he's right. He was right. But he further emphasized that you have to be really honest with yourself. I mean, to be honest with yourself in a practice session, you have to be pretty humble. You have to be willing to take your own self-criticism. It's really important to record our practice sessions. It's not very pleasant to listen to, but
it's never been easier to do that. I think. I mean, everyone's got a phone now that's capable of quite a bit. Yeah, I can't imagine. Well, I can't imagine because I lived through some of that. But like some of the older equipment you'd have to use back in the day to be able to do that.
Yeah.
You know, let alone like audio record, let alone video record or anything, you know, where you could analyze your technical bits.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, really now there's no excuse if you're reasonably equipped with the average device. You know that it's such a easy or relatively easy thing.
Yeah.
That's good. This has been pretty good so far. Let's see. We've been jumping around a lot. It's been good to get your thoughts on the fly here. So we mentioned your upcoming September concerts. Is there anything else you're working on right now? Concerts or anything professional in general? You got your sights set on?
Well, I mainly have the recital and then the two electroacoustic pieces, and after that, I'm not sure. I might try to do a second recital in the spring semester. I've been practicing a lot, and but not necessarily for any particular performance. I've been, just trying to develop a more elegant articulation and just some of the fundamental things. But I at this point, I play also in the Peoria Symphony and the Galesburg Symphony, and the Peoria is actually planning to come back in January. Well, they're coming back in the fall, but without winds, just strings. But I don't know. I think I have a feeling that it's until there's a vaccine that works reasonably well.
Right. Some concrete solution that people can rely on.
I think that we're going to muddle through for a while. Yeah. And muddle's a very positive concept, I think. I'm hoping we can muddle through. I hope it's as good as muddling. I hope it's not worse than muddling.
Yeah. Well, we'll make things work the best we can. At least, I guess that implies forward motion as opposed to just sitting here. So,
right.
Let's see. We've skipped around quite a bit. Are there? Is there any other? Let's say repertoire. I know we started off today with some fun repertoire. Is there anything anything you want to mention that really moves you or inspires you?
Well, I like to learn as much new repertoire as possible, but there are certain pieces that I come back to as they're like foundational pieces for me. Mozart is one of them. Mozart concerto or quintet and quintet. I think it was 2 years ago I did a recital with both Brahms sonatas. I just played them and taught them.
Back to back?
I actually separated them by an arrangement that John Mindeman, our trombone professor, made of one of the Opus 18 intermezzos of Brahms, and he arranged it for clarinet and piano. And so I played that. So I mean, I really continually moved by that music. I'd say Mozart and Brahms and Debussy Rhapsody. So I find the collaboration with the electroacoustic people really fantastic. It's a whole new world, and it's totally different sounds and ways of playing, and I really find that exciting. So I'm kind of like split between being very traditional and liking some of the more far out stuff. I don't double tongue. I've practiced some, but I don't know. Hasn't been fun to practice that. I practice a lot of regular or single tonguing, and I've learned to play some multiphonics. I've gotten better at that. So, but
I'm still a little behind myself on that kind of the contemporary techniques, I guess that.
Right.
We've had to do, at least in my orchestra, like very little of that stuff has been required of us in the wind section. It's fun when it is, but most of the
Yeah.
time it's just kind of the standard body of technique, let's say.
So I say, I have thought that I really should learn to circular breathe. I should learn to double tongue and more of that stuff, just because it's there and it's what people do, and I could teach it. But I haven't really. I always feel that when I start spending time doing that I'm ignoring working on more fundamental things.
Yeah.
So
that's I feel like I have that feeling myself. Like, I forget who else I've talked to about this, but I feel like some of those things can be treated as a crutch for a weakness of fundamental technique. I mean, not accusing people of, like, as if that's the only choice for that, but I mean, certainly my time in the Opperman world has shown me what people can be capable of with highly tuned fundamental technique. There's so much you can do with just the basic technique. I don't know when, or like the point at which things like double tugging and circular breathing become necessary to play a piece. Like, it's gonna be pretty demanding at that point, I feel like. But I feel like for most of the body of repertoire out there, I don't know when I'm gonna have to rely on those techniques. I don't know if that makes sense.
Sometimes I think if you're in an orchestra and you're playing something that's got really rapid tonguing, and the conductor just decides he wants to go really fast that day, what do? You got to find a way to do it, and so that's sort of a practical decision that I mean, I try to get my single tongue as fast as possible, and I don't do a lot of orchestral playing anymore, so it's not as much of a consideration, but it's in the back of my mind that it could happen. And you want to be able to do it. You don't want the conductor to raise his eyebrows or her eyebrows and say, I guess that's hard, isn't it, clarinets? You'd like to say, oh, that sounded easy, clarinets. That's what you want them to think.
Right. Oh, that's it reminds me of the original Star Trek, where I think there's a crack in there about Scotty just always over exaggerating how dire the straits were, so that it always looked like he was working miracles.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. There's a some practical tips for the audience here. We've talked about equipment throughout, and going from Opperman custom stuff to some newer things. Let's say for the non-college student, like basic elementary player on up through high school, do you have any general advice for them about equipment?
Yeah, I think one of the Van Doren mouthpieces is a good bet. They're easily accessible. You can buy them just about anywhere. You can mail order them. And there are enough facings that you can find something you like. So, you could, you might like the 5RV or the 5RV Lyre, or you might like the M13 or the 15 or whatever, M30 or the BD5. I mean, there's so many facings that there's something you could find. And then, because there's such a variety, you can figure out what you like. And then if you want to have somebody make something like that for you, with a more precisely fashioned facing, with not just a factory facing, then you can do that. But I think they're really good. They're consistent.
It takes some of the guesswork out of it for somebody who might be intimidated by what they're looking at.
Yeah, I mean, they're not expensive. They're around $100 or a little less if you find a deal somewhere on certain models. You can spend a lot of money on a custom-made mouthpiece. So
Yes.
it's good to know what you want first. So I'd say for beginners, I mean, it depends on what kind of a beginner and what kind of an advancing player you are, but and it depends on who your teacher is and what they play on, and there's so many variables. But I always recommend a Van Doren, but not everybody takes my recommendations either. So, but that's what I think has been good. I used to play on one of the Bain mouthpieces. I still have it, and I like it a lot. And I've had students on the Bains as well. So, and you've had a Bain mouthpiece, or had
Yeah,
him?
I had he refaced an older I forget what it was. It was an older like vintage era mouthpiece that he'd redone.
Yeah, wasn't it Kilmer you had, or was it a woodwind? Maybe a woodwind.
Yeah, it was. I remember he did a woodwind company one for me. I've had some old Selmers. I can't remember who's had hands on them now.
Mm-hmm.
He may have had his hands on them as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that drew me to him when he first started producing producing mouthpieces. Is looking at kind of the value of the old school vintage stuff, and how he was able how he could reproduce something like that for today. And looking at it now, it seems like his work has really evolved over the years. So someone else I want to try to connect with, maybe get him on this show. And when I can,
he's got some wonderful videos about showing him working on his mouthpieces and also making reeds.
Yeah, there's some great I've seen on his Facebook page.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what other social media he has, but this is a good resource. You're not the first one to recommend him, so he's got a great reputation now, I think. So yeah, I was kind of hoping to see him at the convention this year, but Germans and things, I'll have to wait for another time. But there's a lot of this. It took me starting this channel to kind of look at the network that's kind of sprouted over the years and just see who I can talk to. But it's nice to have this outlet to provide other people that with the value I've gotten from all over the years.
I'll also mention, I'm using these. I'm not sure if you can see it. It's a woodstone reed. It's made by Ishimori in Japan. Woodstone is his company. I think it's the name of his company. And I got these as a present initially. A student who had been coming down for lessons, a high school student, graduated from high school and went on this a trip to the Far East with her family. She went to China and she went to Japan and Korea, et cetera. And in Japan, she went to a music store and found these reeds and brought back a box for me. And I really like them. It's a sort of a traditional cut with maybe thicker than a Van Doren blue box, but kind of that style. So they seem to last a long time. They're more expensive. They're five in a box for $20.
Oh, is the cane from Japan? Is that what it is? Or is
I think it's French cane. I believe it's French cane, and it says France on it, so it must be French cane.
Right.
But they're made in. I don't really know a lot about actually where they're made, but it seems like it's French cane. Yeah, I like them a lot, and I can still use the blue box. I mean, I can use pretty much anything. comes down to it. But just a little while earlier, I saw a reed that I had made. This must be 10 years ago. I mean, it's been sitting on my table, and I worked on it a little bit, and I soaked it up, and it's like one of my homemade reeds, and it's pretty good.
There you go.
Yeah.
I remember when I was there in the studio, that was a reasonable part of our time, was kind of fiddling with reeds, adjusting reeds, or in some cases making them. Are you still active with that? Actually producing reeds, or is that just?
I haven't made a reed in a while. I could sit down and make one, but I feel like I want my reeds to be something that's consistent. So either have a consistent source or have a brand that I like and use all the time. And if I made a reed and I really liked it, then I'd have to make reeds all the time.
Right.
And I mean, I suppose I could just make them once in a while and use whatever works, but I kind of like there to be a more consistency and break in the reeds over a certain period of time and know what condition they're in and work on them. I do work on the reeds a bunch, and I try to get my students to think about working on their reeds. Just basic things. A lot of that isn't taught much anymore.
Yeah, I can relate. I know, my interest in it, particularly when I was there at Western. A fair amount was motivated by my lack of budget to buy more reeds. So just it needs to work. Maybe I can just scrape at it a bit, or
right.
Otherwise treat it in a way that it'll last me, so I don't have to burn up more student loan money. At least not
right. Yeah.
But yeah, I've seen my share of peers over the years just, it doesn't work, and just immediately toss a reed. And it might be to that point. I'm sure they can't all be winners, but I feel like a little bit of elbow grease, you improve it a little bit.
Right. I mean that's the way. Because through Ben Armato, he was really into working on reeds, and then Cal, of course, was famous for writing one of the early reed making manuals. So, and I made reeds with him. But with him, when I made reeds, he sort of showed me a few things. I read his book, and then I made them. And then I'd bring them into him, and he'd say, "Oh, this is no good," or "This is pretty good," and he'd take out his knife and make a few scrapes, and it was really good.
Yeah.
It was, it's basically, he always said, either make a lot of reeds or buy a lot of reeds. And so I've never wanted to throw my old reeds away, because I can always maybe go through it, and if I can't find anything, maybe a student could find something. Drucker would very often come in with a shoebox. Yeah, and he had his reeds numbered 1 to 10, because there were 10 in a box of Andorrans, and they were never any ones, because he kept those for himself.
Right.
But why would he give me any of his ones? But there was occasionally a 2, and they're 3s, 4s, and 5s, and some of them were pretty good. So I always have kept all my reeds around, and I'll just give students the bin to sort through, and they're getting frustrated with their reeds.
That's nice to have. I'm sure I've had my turn at the pile myself.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I still have my some of those in my own pile in my own studio at home. Waiting to be passed along down the lineage, I guess. And so that's all our experience with cane reeds. Do you have any thoughts or experience with any synthetics so far you want to discuss?
I have a few. I think I have maybe 3 that were given to me. I used to play in the summers at Brevard, and I don't do that anymore. And they're not even having a season this summer. But and Steve Cohen, with whom I worked, is a Legere person, and he would give me a few once in a while, and they were okay. I liked them, but I guess I wasn't ready to leave Kane. I mean, I think the Legeres are amazingly good. They're just not Kane.
Yeah.
So if there's something you really like about the Kane, and it has something to do maybe with the color or whatever, and I don't know that I can tell the difference if I listen to a recording of what kind of reed a person's playing, nor could I tell what kind of mouthpiece or equipment they're playing. But I can tell when I'm playing what I'm using. I know how it feels, and I think that's the important thing. Is if it doesn't feel like you're comfortable, or you're not getting the response that you would like, that you want to have, and it may be that there's some overtones that are missing in the synthetic that give the sound a little more ring.
Yeah.
Although I think the synthetics can be pretty ringy too. I think you have to learn how to play them. So I haven't done it. But I feel like if I were to do it and I liked it, then I wouldn't be able to switch back and forth. I'd have to just go and play on synthetics all the time. I don't think it's that easy to go back and forth between the two.
All in or all out, kind of.
That's kind of what I suppose there are people who do both. I don't know.
I tried that over the years now with my orchestra, because occasionally, we play something where I have to be on an auxiliary, bass or E flat.
Yeah.
And I used to keep a Legere for each of those, because I just didn't, I didn't keep up good cane reeds for either of those, and I didn't get the notice far enough ahead of time to just drum up a batch of cane reeds that I liked, but now I just have the cane reeds because I got frustrated at there's certain things that I think, like you mentioned, it just didn't exactly sit right with me on the synthetic, even though the notes would come out. Just wasn't quite comfortable for me. So now I just keep I guess my gambling batch of cane reeds for those, and just try to keep up.
I think that a lot depends on what you're doing. So if you're playing in a professional orchestra and you're playing every day, and you have to have something that works every day, and you get to the point where the Legere is going to work for you, it can make your life a lot easier. And I know that when I was playing at Brevard and we had a concert every week, how I chose reeds and how I practiced was a lot different than I do when I play maybe one orchestra concert a month, or two, maybe one or two a month, and I have different kinds of routines. So I think if you're consistently playing in an orchestra, I could see it would it could make a difference that way. But a lot of people use them who don't play in orchestras as well. So I don't know. I try them every once in a while, and I kind of like them, but
often when I've recommended them to students, it's because of the marching component of their school band program.
Oh, sure.
And so they might not feel like their best cane reed, but it's something they can always slap on their marching instrument, and whatever it does, it will always do that.
Yeah. Legere had a video of a guy in New York City whose name is John Moses, and he's a doubler, a quintupler, and I think he was playing what's that show called? Defying Gravity, has a song Defying Gravity in it. About the Wizard of Oz takeoff.
I'm sure we'll dig it up later. I'm
Anyway, so he's playing 5 different instruments. He's playing clarinet, bass clarinet, several saxophones, and he says he couldn't do his job without the Legers. And he's a really good player. But there are people who've been doing that job with the cane reeds as well. So it's just another tool.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing how that technology evolves. I know it's come a long way since the first generation Legers, and I know there's other companies doing some kind of synthetic material. I see that more from the jazz side, I feel like.
Right.
So we'll see how. I think once we get to the point where there's a synthetic material where I could fiddle with it with my knife, then I might be a little more comfortable. But
people do work on them with their knives. I mean, you're not supposed to be able to, but some people do it. So, so I think you can. I mean, it stands to reason you could change its shape and it would change its response.
Right. But I mean, I know from my knife making, working plastics versus working anything natural. It's
yeah.
It is a different thing. But yeah, we'll see where it goes over time. Are you still okay on time?
What time is it? It's yeah, I'm fine.
All right. I know it's been a while since we've talked, and I'm getting into some good stuff. So I don't want to.
Definitely, I'm enjoying this.
Yeah, I think I was talking with Dr. Barrett the other day. I think we're all a little starved for shop talk and that kind of experience, just being
right,
huddled away at home or but this is good. Let's see. We're talking about student equipment. Let's see. And we've had quite a bit on the professional side too. I noticed your ligature is different now. Which
it's also the Ishimori. It's okay. Ishimori, and it's silver. And
any kind of fancy rails inside, or
yeah, it's and it's become you can see it now. I mean, I like it. I used to use string. I really like string, but I kind of I like this one, and this was given to me actually by I think he was no longer, maybe he wasn't here when you were here. Dan Richmond. Do you know Dan Richmond?
I don't know.
Yeah, so he's a clarinetist, but he's a composer, and he's a very brilliant fellow. And he took clarinet lessons, but not, he just took them privately, and I didn't charge him anything. And so he gave this to me, and I knew that it was out there. People were using them, but I hadn't bought one yet. I've also used the Van Doren Optimum, and I like that pretty well. But it seems pretty good. It seems like it has a pretty resonant, gives you a pretty resonant tone.
All right.
Yeah. I still have my 2 barrels from Wojtek, and I like them a lot, but they don't fit on this new clarinet, so I have to wait till I can get them worked on.
So Wojtek is another one of our friends from this whole Opperman world. He's a brilliant technician and performer as well. I'll have to. I haven't talked to him in a while. Actually, I have one of his barrels myself. That's got the. Does yours have the interchangeable bores?
Mine is a little. Yeah, it has an interchangeable core, but my system is a little different than yours.
Okay.
Yours is, I think, the beta model, and
My equipment was always his kind of like Frankenstein experiment stuff.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like. I was happy to be the guinea pig, and it was always fascinating to see the kind of stuff that would
Yeah.
happen when he would, like just did little machine magic to get dramatically different results. But hopefully I can get him
Yeah.
on in the future if he's willing. Talk
That
about
would be great.
this.
Yeah.
Um,
I
but
think this is a relatively new. It's an RC buffet, and I bought it a couple of years ago, and like in July of 2 years ago, 18, and the upper joint cracked, and they replaced it, and then the second one cracked. So this is the third upper joint I've had, and so I'm being very careful with it. And once the weather gets cold, I'm not going to take it out of the house because I have an older clarinet I can use.
that's do you find that happens more frequently with like newer generations of clarinet, or is it just kind of is there not really like a discernible difference between generations? I feel like I've seen clarinets from the 70s and earlier, and people have told me like if it hasn't cracked yet, it's just not going to. I don't know how far I believe that because it's still wood, but I feel like I've also seen more instances of like everything from the 2000s and on being somehow more susceptible to cracking.
Well, that's what they say, is that the wood is not so good anymore. It's why they have this very, very nice warranty policy. 2 years, I think, against cracking. But I have two other B flats, and one I got in 1975. It's like 140,000 series that I bought from Cal Opperman, and it's never cracked. It's almost like it's like a tank. Although it plays very beautifully, I think, but and it never cracked. And my A also, maybe it's a little bit newer, 1980, I think I got it, and I love my A clarinet. But I had another B flat from around 1980 or 81 that did crack, but much later, and I think it was just circumstances. And I don't know if it was just the stage was really hot in Galesburg when I in the middle of the winter, the heat was turned up and the lights were on really intensely, and it cracked. So I don't know. I'm hoping this one doesn't crack.
Yeah.
Cracks can be repaired, and doesn't seem to harm the instrument to have a crack as long as it's not too devastating. And there's real artists who know how to fix them, and you hardly even know that it cracked.
Yeah.
But for now, I have this instrument and it's not cracked. But I am interested in having some more work done on it. Just more. Maybe I'll go see Wojtek in a year or something. Have him work it over.
Is he still where he was? Just out around New York.
He lives in Union City, which is just across the Hudson River in New Jersey. So it's not that far.
All right.
So I saw him. Gosh, this was probably 4 years ago. I was in New York, and I drove down from my brother's house, and he did some repair work, and I bought the barrels. I bought the barrels from him then. So I guess it's 4 years ago.
Well, I'll have to. Well, if I make enough money from this online content endeavor, maybe I'll have enough to get some more shop time in with him. Or maybe I can harass him for an endorsement deal like many other YouTubers. But it's nice to hear. It's nice to hear he's still doing well and cranking out good stuff.
Yeah, and he's a big bicycle racer.
I saw that. I saw some of his social media. He's in his biker tights and very slender. The last time I saw.
Yeah, he's a real serious bicyclist, I should say.
Well, that's important to have your life outside the clarinet. I guess that could lead me to the next point. Like you mentioned swimming. What else do you like to do outside of clarinet?
I like to read. I like to swim. I like to bicycle. I like to play chess, but I haven't done any chess playing in a while. But I like to cook. Basically, that's my life, I'd say. But swimming is a big deal now. But once school starts, I'm not sure how much I'll be able to do. But it's been harder but the semester is going to be different, and I'll be able to get some time to do it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have a lot of things I'm interested in. So I like reading. I like reading the newspaper and magazines and read about various things. I'm still very interested in science. And so all the articles about the coronavirus are fascinating to me when they're doing all the genetic sequencing of the virus and the different vaccines and how they're being formulated. I find that just incredibly fascinating.
Yeah, that's interesting. You mentioned the science component. I was my interview with Dr. Barrett. He mentioned when he originally started undergrad, it was not for music. It was for I forget now. It was also some kind of science. And I feel like a lot of other musicians I've met over the years, they've had kind of a similar interest or fascination.
Yeah.
Is it you think maybe it's the analytical side of things, or maybe some kind of balance with the art side that draws people to those things? Or
Could be the analytical side. My brother is a big chess player, and he's a very analytical guy, and he wasn't a scientist or anything, but that's a big part of his life, and he's very good at analyzing problems, whether on the tennis court or the chess board, or if I'm ever playing anything for him. He's been always a very good teacher. So it may be that, but there are a lot of musicians who have just been drunks and poker players and gamblers, and good musicians. They just happen to have that side of them.
Right. Oh, I certainly had my side of being that, especially at Western. But yeah, no, I guess that's part of the broader point of musicians being human. Aside from the technical pursuit of the instrument, having some kind of humanity to communicate with your art.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is the same for you, but I feel like I can hear the difference between somebody who's just a practice room hermit versus somebody who's they still practice, but they also have gone and lived life and have something to communicate. I don't know.
Absolutely.
Like for instance, I have a lot of respect for the child prodigies I've seen, but there's a point where that enjoyment stops for me, because okay, I get it, they're very technically skilled at their instrument, but I feel like they're whatever they have to express, they only have 10 years of human life, or 5 to 8 years of human life behind that.
Yeah. There are it's just true. Sometimes you have to just be patient with them. Because they're so phenomenal. Somebody's making money putting them on the stage and booking concerts for them, and they're making a career for themselves. And it's it's a great career, but you know, they have more time to live, and let's hear them when they're middle-aged. But you know, there are these famous stories about, like, Yehudi Menuhin, the violinist, who I think he was 12 when he played the Beethoven Violin Concerto for his premiere, and it was incredibly mature. And there are some people who are wunderkinds who are more mature. Different. It's an interesting phenomenon, because obviously a child isn't mature enough to have an adult type of relationship, but they can play music and express these very profound human emotions, and you know, when they haven't necessarily experienced all that yet. And there's something about the music being on another plane, in another dimension, that somehow you can access that. I mean, how could Mozart, when he was so young, be able to write such heartbreaking music?
Right.
And even when he died, I mean, he was that old, you know. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. But you know, Callow, he said to me, "Say something." He didn't want to just hear me play notes, although he certainly wanted the notes.
Right.
But
oh no, that's I enjoy these, or I over the years I've enjoyed those Oppermanisms. It's something I've tried to, you know, they're concise, but there's a lot of depth when you think about some of those things.
Yeah, he always he would say something and be somebody, and then if he felt somebody was being arrogant or condescending, he would just say, "What's your claim to fame? You know, who are you? What have you done?" So
there's a lot of that approach that I've tried to grasp at in my own teaching. Just I like the, you know, how direct it can be. I try not to. I mean, I work with a lot of younger players, so I can't yell at them, you know, the same way as But you know, I don't think for today's students, I don't know that would do them, or how much good that would do them. What I mean, I don't want people to just float through the studio either. Like, they need to understand the truth of what they're doing.
what Cal could do, I mean, he could be brutally honest, and he could be a little rough around the edges, but he was also very perceptive, and he would never hurt anybody. You know, and he would be incredibly supportive if you were needing that. And I think like, and certain things that he would tell me about being a father, and he would, you know, he'd say, "Hey, your child didn't ask to be born. You know, that wasn't their choice. It was your choice. And so you have to follow through." And in the same way, he gave a lot to his students. He gave himself totally to his students. So he could be rough if he didn't think you were appreciative, or if you were just too dense to figure out what he was doing. But he, I mean, he was unstinting with his time. Lessons were 3 or 4 hours, and students who were scheduled are sitting there on the sofa piling up, you know, going out for coffee, bringing back lunch or dinner. But he would take the time. He would take the time it took to complete the lesson properly, and he didn't care if you had to catch a train or a ride, because he was totally devoted to that time with you.
That's
so we can't do that in a way. We can't be Cal Oppermans, but but I think you can be there for your students, you know, in whatever they need. They may need the discipline of whatever you're able to give them, but they also may need some compassion and just understanding for what they're going through, what it is like to be a student nowadays.
Mm. Yeah, it's definitely the good teaching requires that connection and the flexibility to the needs of the student. I'm glad to have seen that his example, and of course, you know, yours as well. So we spent a fair amount of time together. You know, if I knew my students were that interested in what I'd have to offer, it'd be a lot easier to devote myself. I feel like, you know, I've worked with a lot of younger players, and some of them, it's like, okay, mom and dad are just making me do this, and there's a little less, let's say, professional delight in that arrangement. I do what I can. And like, I don't want to just shut off right as we begin, even if it's not initially keyed in or whatever. But it gets a little less exciting with enough of those students going through. I have to admit, part of why I started this channel is I'm planning to just put my foundational instructional material up as kind of a barrier to entry. Like, if you really want to study with me, here's how I see the fundamentals and what I expect of you, and maybe we can work in person after that.
That's good.
But
I think that students who come without our involvement with the instrument or with music are a challenge, but I think what makes it challenging, what makes it hard work is to figure out what they need. I mean, they don't necessarily need what you're going to could give them to become fine clarinetists or fine musicians. They may need something else, and you might be able to do it on the clarinet. And it might just be taking them seriously. And so their mom's making them take the lessons, and so, okay, so you're here because your mom wants you to. Let's make the best of it. Let's show her what you can do. Let's, you know, that's one example. And here, you know, we have some people who are performance majors, some people who are ed, some people who are therapy, some people are business, and they all have different needs and they have different timelines. You know, if you want to be a performer, you work on that your whole life. If you're going to be in business, you're looking to get your resume together so you can get a job. And so, you know, we work differently for what they need. And at the same time, they're in a studio, and there are certain standards you have to obey and adhere to. But what's great is finding ways for what each one needs, and then try to make them better musicians, better clarinetists.
Get positive influence in the field that we have influence over.
Yeah. I mean, I always have felt that the you know, the different majors that we have in a university in music are somewhat artificial, in that everybody is a player because you're playing an instrument, and everybody is a teacher because you will at some point more than likely teach somebody to play. And if you want to not starve, you have to be a business person so that you can figure out how to make some money. And there's a therapeutic aspect to playing an instrument, to teaching, to playing, performing, and to doing business that is inherent in what we do. So we are all those majors at the same time. And part of in performance, in you're performing before an audience, you're trying to communicate. So you're emotionally trying to connect with the audience, and you're also trying to emotionally connect with yourself. And then intellectually, you want the music to make sense to you. And so it's a combination of a lot of things happening at once.
That's good. Let's see. What there's so much value in here already. I'm glad we're digging in. What are some high value like books, media resources that you'd recommend for? I don't know if there's a difference between the younger players or aspiring professionals, but like real foundational materials that could benefit everyone.
Foundational materials for players. I think the Close book is pretty darn good. Or there are varieties of it. There's, Lazarus has 3 volumes. This Longinus Method is a couple of volumes with similar types of things. A lot of them have nice duets in them. I started out in the Rubank books as a beginner.
Yeah.
And I look back through them. There's some really great exercises in there. A lot of that was lifted from other books from Close. One book I like to use, I'm not sure if we used it, is the Tone Technique and Staccato of Avram Galper.
Galper, yep.
It's a lot of it is lifted from Close, and he doesn't do any attribution, but a lot of it is Close and Krebs and some Behrman, and he's got some excerpt inspired exercises at the back. I like that book a lot. I like the Rose. I've been working a lot out of the Mimar, which is a book that Cal had me work out of, and I was able to buy a copy 20 years ago. Who knows? A long time ago, from the student of a friend of mine who was living in Paris, and he bought it for me, and it was like $60. It's like $120, and it's all in French, but it's got some really nice exercises in it. So as far as the books, those are the foundational ones. There are a lot of other really interesting. There's the whole Perrier series that I studied with Cal. They're really good. There's what's his name? The Krebs books are really good. The advanced studies of Polacek, that's his name, Polacek, they're really good. I try to every day go through all my scales, and some days I'll do arpeggios, or I'll do patterns of dominant 7th chords, and I'll start on low E and I'll go up to F, and I'll just go up chromatically that way. And I just do it. I'm not looking at a book when I do it, and I change it. I make it up. I change it. I add different articulations. If I'm playing a pattern that's got 4/16 notes to the beat, then there are 4 or 5 different articulations I can use. And I may not do all of them every day, but in the course of a week or so, I'll try to cover many of them as I can. Now, as I'm starting to get more serious about preparing for my recital, I'm spending less time on that and more time on the repertoire itself. But I always make sure I do some of that stuff. Cal was really big on doing 12ths. Just as long toned 12ths. He always put down doing long tones. He used to call them long drones, and Drucker said life is too short for long tones. But I think they're really helpful as long as you do them intelligently. And in the 12ths, you're you're playing. Let me put my reed on. I'll show you. And it brings us back to the Galper book, because on page 16 he's got this exercise that goes through the circle of fifths when you do a 12th, and then you come down the arpeggio.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like that. So that's, and then you do A minor, F major, D minor. The idea in the 12th is that you're using the same embouchure, the same column of air for both notes. And this is what Cal taught me, and Galper mentions it in his book as well. So it's not just a one person's particular take. I think it's a pretty universal concept for clarinet playing. Is that you're producing the note on both notes on the low note. So the low C has enough overtones in it that the G comes out without, as Cal would say, having to produce it. So you wouldn't want to play it. So it's just a flick, it's just a subtle movement of your thumb. But he was very, very big on those, as developing stability in your embouchure, voicing of the interval.
Yeah, that's a popular one with my own students. I have them once I feel like they're ready for that book. I have them put the little sticky flag in the page.
Right.
There's so much. I think you instilled the value of that book in me when I was there, but kind of building that base foundational tone, and where you can go from there. Yeah, especially the 12s. I have this kind of perception of the one note like emerging from the other, and they're both there, but one appears from the other. Instead of like, one.
It's like the first note gives birth to the second note. It's like it's like a child of the first note. It's interesting. Everybody takes different lessons from a teacher. Wojtek had said to me that he thought the most important thing he learned from Opperman was staccato, because he really. It's a big part of the discipline of his teaching. And my very first lesson, he introduced me to what he called the six staccato exercises, which was et cetera, up and down. And then you change to the number 2. And then the third one was, the fourth was 6 notes, and the 7th was 8 notes, and the last one, did I go 1, 2, 3, 4? And so the 6th one was a chromatic scale, 1-octave chromatic scale, slurred and tongued. And then, of course, you keep track of how fast you're doing it. And whenever I'd call him up, he'd ask me, so, what's your metronome number? He wanted to know how fast I was tonguing. So he was very methodical about that, because staccato speed is one of those things that separates the, it's like a caste system in a way in the clarinet world, is that if you can tongue really fast, then you're in a different kind of group. Mm-hmm. And he had a very methodical way of working on it. And if you do it, it works. So I did all that, but what I took for him, in addition to the staccato stuff, was I just took from him the idea of playing smoothly and the idea of intervals being smooth, and of singing through the interval.
And I think maybe because I like to listen to singers so much, I relate that to playing intervals on the clarinet and to being able to play, to support an interval like a singer supports an interval.
Yeah, the carrying those vocal ideas. You know, I guess in the broader sense, like ideas from all across music to improve whatever your art is or is becoming. Right? Yeah, I have to agree. Like my listening has kind of veered away from clarinet, like predominantly clarinet, and I've been digging up a lot of old YouTube clips myself, old you know, orchestral performances or all different instruments, world music too. Yeah, I focused a little bit on you know, like the Middle East and some Far Eastern music now, just getting their ideas. Even, you know, even the tonality is different, and their ideas of those things, and just
Right.
kind of seeing how, because it's still human communication, but you know, in that context, and what's all feeding into it, and how what can I bring into my art from that. But no, it's always a work in progress, and
Yeah.
always something to learn. What are some of your books or movies or any kind of media you're enjoying now, just as leisure time?
Oh gosh. So I mean, I have pretty varied interests. I mean, I love the Star Wars movies and Lord of the Rings stuff. But I like, when I was younger, I was really into French New Wave cinema and Francois Truffaut and Godard. And I haven't watched a lot of that stuff lately, but I really can't remember the last movie I saw. It might have been Mary Poppins that I saw with my daughter.
The newer one?
The new one, yeah.
Who? It's Emily Blunt, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I remember.
She's very good.
Oh, good. I that's one of those sacred cows for me. Like if you're going to remake a classic like Mary Poppins, it better be able to stand up on its own.
Yeah, it was very good. I mean, I like the original for sure. And in fact, you know, Dick Van Dyke was in the original, and he has a role in the new one.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I think I took for granted that he's still around.
Yeah. So yeah, it was very good. What else have I you know, there are some books I've read. Excuse me. There's one called The Undoing Project by Michael Lewis. Yeah, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Michael Lewis, but he wrote the Moneyball and The Big Short.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so The Undoing Project is about these two Israeli psychologists who investigate the human psychology of decision making, of how we decide what we like. And it starts out where Michael Lewis is interviewing, I think he's got some position in the Houston Rockets. He's in charge of what their draft picks are each year. And so there's all kinds of scouting reports, and this, I guess, plays into the Moneyball angle, you know, how we decide who's going to be a good player. And so, you know, they look at all the players, and then they decide, okay, this is our number one choice. But more often than not, the number one choices don't end up being stars. And at that time, there was a player on the Knicks named Jeremy Lin, Asian American player. He'd gone to Harvard, where he played basketball, and he was drafted on the Knicks. And somebody got hurt, and he started playing, and he was like a breakout sensation. And so what Michael Lewis is trying to figure out is, why didn't we pick him first? You know, why did the person who was, you know, had all the the PR and all, and we thought was going to be the great star. Why did we pick that person and he didn't end up being a great player? So how we make the decisions, and it could be decisions about, hiring decisions or decisions you make in life. And so the book investigates and evaluates all the various innate biases we have in how we make decisions. So it was very interesting to me. I highly recommend it. It's called The Undoing Project.
All right. We'll link that in the show notes.
Yeah. And I like a lot of 19th century writers. I like Dickens and George Eliot and, sort of more traditional stuff. They're like 600-700 page books, 800 page books that you can just sort of dive into and spend, a while in, and you feel like you've lived another life. It's really great. And I'm reading this, I just started this, it's called the Ibis trilogy, by this Indian writer, Amitav Ghosh, Ghosh. And he was recommended by a friend. And so I bought it. I have it on my Kindle. And I'm really enjoying it a lot. So I mean, and I watch silly things, like I got into this series that was on TV called Chuck, who's a nerd who works at like a Best Buy, although they call it something else, and ends up getting a computer download into his brain that has all the secrets of the national security apparatus. And so it's kind of a cute thing. The characters are weird and it's very nerdy, and I kind of liked it. There's a new Perry Mason series that's out. I've been watching that. I don't know. So I like lots of stuff.
That's good. It's there's a lot out there.
Yeah.
My friends keep yelling at me. I need to watch this series or that. Just I don't know how people can keep up. There's just so much.
There's too much. I know.
I mean, that's a sign of the times too. Things like this, you can, if you have a good idea and the means to produce it, there's, not the same. We no longer have the old barriers to entry for creating things and reaching a market on a large scale.
Right.
I mean, I've heard of a lot of, like, let's say Netflix shows and movies that were at one time a movie or series pitch that some large studio executive just didn't okay.
That's right.
Now in the environment we have with the outlets we have now, there's so much choice for quality, and it's not, these are not bad productions. These are high level, like, quality entertainment, things of quality. Yeah. So it's nice to see that, but at the same time, I don't have the time or energy to watch everything everyone wants to recommend to me either.
You never get any sleep.
Yeah, I had a roommate like that once. Surprised me by, let's say, his ability to intake entertainment.
Yeah.
Still does. He's a good guy, but I've never before or since had somebody invite me to sit down to a whole season of something. It's remarkable, but this one's a little out there. Something you used to believe that you don't believe anymore. Doesn't have to be anything too earth-shattering. I mean,
well, I thought about this a lot because I suppose some of the things that I believe now are, I guess I'm less idealistic than I used to be. So that's not exactly something I don't believe anymore. It's just that I've grown a little jaded. I don't feel I'm very jaded, but I'm sort of jaded with the human race.
That's clear.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just could be, I don't know. But in terms of, I do kind of feel like my life has been sort of a line, like a continuum, and I don't think that I've made any really sharp turns at any point away from things. So, you know, in a way, I was never, I had a pretty good understanding of what the music business was going to be about, like, just from my family. So I went into it anyway. So I could never, you know, blame anybody for it, because I made the decision on my own. But so I don't think that there's anything I don't believe anymore that I once did. I think I might have in the past been much more convinced that there was one way to play, because I was involved in a teacher who was telling me a very particular way of playing.
Mhm.
But I certainly don't believe that anymore, although I certainly play a certain way, and you know, I've tried to challenge myself by playing on different equipment and listening to different styles of playing, but I kind of come back to who I am.
Yeah.
So I don't really think I have abandoned or not thought of. I mean, I haven't had any religious breakdowns or conversions, or I guess maybe I think I'm perhaps more sympathetic or more understanding of religion than I used to be. I wasn't raised religiously at all, but I think that over the course of my life, I've started to see how well, I'll tell you a story. I was talking to a friend several years ago, and I was talking to him about, you know, I had said, you know, I was an atheist. I didn't believe in any of this stuff. And then I was talking about something that I felt very strongly about. And he said, that sounds very Old Testament of you. And so it was just a funny remark he said, but it made me think, you know, maybe that there's a part of me that is influenced or part of a tradition of religion, and so it's made me look in myself a little differently and not be so sure that I know who I am and what I like and don't like. So so maybe I'm more open-minded now. That's not exactly a change, but I think I may be more open-minded.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I mean, it's going from some amount of closed-mindedness, or however that might have been, to, you know, to something more open. It's interesting. I found that question just on, you know, some random blog that talked about questions to ask people.
Yeah.
You know? But it stuck to me because, you know, I've had my share of very belief influenced experiences.
Right.
I can probably save for another, you know, another 5 hours of content later.
Right.
It's interesting that the question itself doesn't specifically say anything about religion, but the idea, like the wordage, you know, the idea of belief, it seems like a lot of people tend to go towards you know, a religious you know, thoughts of religious nature. You know, I mean, if I were being simplistic, I might just say, like, I don't believe in Santa Claus anymore necessarily. But it does make us, you know, it does make us think. And I think that's part of the exercise.
Yeah. I would say I don't believe in Santa Claus, but I do believe in in the power of people to give to each other, to share with each other.
Yeah.
Which is what Santa Claus is a metaphor for, I guess.
So at some point,
Yeah.
as children, we need that crutch to attach that concept to, and at some point the world becomes bigger. But it's
because it may be that the human beings being what they are, that we wouldn't give to each other unless there were the form of a Santa Claus. And I think maybe that's why religion was developed, why it developed, so as a means of keeping a community whole.
Yeah, it seems to, like, I don't know, the time I've spent around the subject, there seems to be something in human nature to grasp at unknowns, whether it's looking at the science of a thing that you don't understand, or just, you know, reaching for some kind of faith to deal with it.
Right.
You know, there are things we don't know, and you know, one way or another, I think our brains have to process it somehow so that we can live our daily lives.
Right.
I haven't met a lot of people who just like, okay, there's no, you know, whatever, you know, let's say afterlife. Okay, that's it. And then just move on. And there's no little, you know, thought processing in the back. Like, yeah, it's something that garners a lot of thought and discussion. I don't know. That's where it's a little stretch from clarinet, but here we are. And you know, I guess it influences our art in some way as well.
You know, one thing is that I will say is that, especially now, where the pandemic has been a magnifying glass for all of the problems that have been out there all along anyway, and just exacerbating anybody who was having any problems in the first place is in much worse shape. Is, you know, just the sense that there's a tremendous amount of pain and hurting going on, and in that context, whatever people can find to get them through, or even get them through one day, is very positive. And the people who are in these faith-based organizations are giving. I mean, right across the street from where we live, there's a Presbyterian church, and they now have a community garden that they planted, and anybody can stop and just take vegetables. And they've done this just for the community, because people involved there thought this was an important thing to do. And they don't check and see what your ID card is for your religion when you stop in to get it. It's just, you go, you pick your cucumbers or your tomatoes. That's really, you know, that's the most important thing.
That's good.
Yeah.
Is there anything you can think of that I didn't ask you about that I should have?
Well, I don't know. We didn't really talk about double lip per se, in terms of, you know, I've been doing it such a long time that I almost take it for granted. Although if I don't practice in an appropriate way, I definitely know that it's not working. You know, it requires the muscles to be in shape all the time. But I think it's kind of an intrinsic part of how I play. I think I could put my teeth on and still play okay, but I don't think I'd be as happy.
Yeah, there's a sense of habit in there now. I know it's myself. Yeah, and I don't want to presume that this will be our only time to talk in this format.
Sure.
Maybe in the future we can dig into some of the, you know, double lip or any other subject you might want to elaborate on. I feel like a lot of the content I've seen online regarding it is from somebody who who has tried it but doesn't use it exclusively, or it's often prescribed as a remedial technique, which it's good. It's good as that, because you're building the muscles you need anyway. But
not every student who studied with Cal was a full-time double lipper. They studied double lip with him. I don't even think Wojtek plays double lip anymore. But I think they just, whatever the concerns are, whatever their needs are, they find it easier to not do it. But I started out and I did it kind of provisionally. I was going to see how it went. But I liked it right away, and I just said, okay, I'll just put in whatever time it takes to get good at it. It took me a long time to be able to stand up and play double lip.
It's still a long time.
It's hard. It's definitely hard. You have to train for it. It's like training for a race. And I'd use a neck strap now. That helps a lot.
I think for me it helps that I'm not doing a lot of standing playing the way what I've chosen to play in. We're just sitting in our orchestra sections.
Sure.
And, well, not right now, but on a normal during a normal season.
Right.
But yeah, hopefully in the near future we can dig into that some more.
I'd love to talk some more. I would love to. Definitely love to do some more. Absolutely.
So to recap, you have your two concerts in September. You wanna go over those one more time for us?
Okay, so recital September 9th, and then the electroacoustic concert September 23rd.
All right, and that's over at Western Illinois University.
Yeah, and they're both going to be streamed. So I'm not sure how you access that, but I don't think it's hard.
All right. Well, we'll get it in the show notes. So if you want to see it live or hopefully after the fact, we can, the audience, hopefully growing audience, will get a chance to see you there. Is there any other anything else you want to mention professionally or put in any kind of plug for?
I don't think so.
All right.
I think it's been a lot of fun talking to you.
Yeah, likewise. So once again, this is our, I don't even know how long we've been at it for a bit, but talking with my old professor, Eric Ginsberg. He's over at Western Illinois University for anyone watching. Definitely a great resource. Look him up over there. Active playing. The orchestras you're in, they're on hold for now.
Yeah. So you played in Galesburg a little bit, didn't you?
I can't remember. I think so. I can't remember.
And then I also play in Peoria Symphony, which is a larger group than Galesburg. And I haven't heard anything from Galesburg about the fall, but Peoria is having a strings only fall, and then we're starting off. I guess there'll be 3 concerts or so, maybe 3 or 4 concerts, and starting in January. At least that's the plan. Whether what happens when we get to January, we'll see. But
right. So Galesburg and Peoria, and I dropped.
Yeah,
expensive equipment. Well, that's that. Yeah, so we'll put it all in the show notes. Hopefully, people will be able to connect with you. But thanks again for your time. I appreciate it. Hopefully, we'll get plenty more, and maybe I can make $1 or $2 over the next few months off of monetizing this.
I hope so.
But yeah, looking forward to in-person time whenever it's safe.
You bet.
But thanks again, and we'll see you soon.
Take care.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.